My arch-nemesis, Charles Cole, had an accident. He was going to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Everyone avoided him like the plague, but I was more than happy to marry him. Since he couldn't walk, I felt like I had a new pet, one I could mold however I wanted. When I was happy, I'd pull him into my arms and we'd sleep together. When I wasn't, I'd pinch his handsome cheeks and mush his face around. Seeing him look so mortified and humiliated always managed to cheer me up. The day my family went bankrupt, I realized I probably couldn't afford to keep him. I made arrangements for his future, packed my things, and quietly left New York City. But he dragged me back. The tall man pinned me against the floor-to-ceiling window. "Jenna," he snarled, biting out every word, "what the hell is this? You sleep with me and then try to run?" I stared at his long, straight legs, horrified. "How are you standing?" It was a dreary, rainy day at the Johnston family's hillside estate. The room was dim. Using the faint light filtering through the window, I walked to the bed and slid under the covers with Charles Cole. He was my former rival, now my husband. The fact that he was now lying here obediently, letting me do as I pleased, was a huge thrill. Charles's whole body went rigid as I pulled him into my arms. He struggled for a moment before finally saying, "I don't feel well today. You should sleep in your own room." I bit down on his collarbone, my voice muffled. "No. It's warmer sleeping with you. I want to sleep here." His ears turned red. He looked like he wanted to curse me out but couldn't find the words, so he eventually just fell silent. He closed his eyes, trying his best to ignore me. His long, thick eyelashes trembled, making him look a little pathetic. I smiled, slipping my cool fingers under the blanket and forcing him to interlace them with mine. He flinched and tried to pull his hand away, but I brought it to my lips and gently nibbled on his fingertips. He couldn't take it anymore. His eyes flew open, his fair skin flushed completely red. "Jenna, I'm not your toy." I looked straight into his reddened eyes and chuckled. "How could you be a toy? You're my husband. I'm just doing this to, strengthen our bond." His chest heaved, but with his lower body paralyzed, all he could do was lie there and let me tease him, completely powerless to resist. The rain outside grew heavier, punctuated by the occasional clap of thunder that seemed ready to split the sky in two. My eyelids felt heavy. I wrapped my arms around Charles's lean waist and buried my face in his chest. When he didn't say anything, I looked up at him. "Why'd you stop cursing at me?" "Some people," Charles said wearily, "just get more turned on the more you curse at them." I let out a low laugh. "You wouldn't happen to be talking about me, would you?" He struggled slightly in my arms. "If the shoe fits. And if I don't think it fits?" I challenged. "Objective facts," he said stiffly, "don't change. Just because someone wants to argue." The smile on my face widened, and I tightened my grip around him. Arguing with him was always fun. The pleasant scent of fur drifted into my nose, calming me and making me even sleepier. I drifted off into a hazy sleep. But even in my dream, I could feel a burning gaze fixed on me, as if it wanted to swallow me whole. I slept until the afternoon. The sky outside was still overcast. At some point, Charles had fallen asleep too. His strong arm was wrapped tightly around my waist, holding me in place. I took out my phone and snapped a picture of his sleeping face, then took a few more of the way he was holding me. I was very satisfied. I chose a solo shot of him and set it as my wallpaper. Suddenly, even my phone looked better. Charles was still Charles. Even in his downfall, he hadn't lost an ounce of that refined, captivating charm. He had the classic good looks of a man from up north, strong and rugged. His facial structure was sharp, his features deep-set and defined. He had a high-bridged nose and thin lips that looked perfect for kissing. But I didn't dare make a move. After all, Charles and I had a history of being at each other's throats. In the business world, it was either me stealing his clients or him trying to drive me into the ground. Even though I'd picked him up after he hit rock bottom, I was afraid that if I pushed him too far, he might snap and do something drastic. That was the last thing I wanted. I could hear his steady breathing beside me. His hair was a little messy in his sleep, and his lips were slightly flushed, looking like an invitation to my own ruin. I clenched my fists to suppress my dark impulses, got out of bed, and went to the living room to chug 2 glasses of ice water. Beauty really is a dangerous thing. In that moment, I started to think that bringing Charles home might not have been the right decision after all. I used to despise Charles Cole. I thought he was an uptight prude who was secretly seething underneath. He always looked down his nose at everyone, wrapped in an aura of cold detachment that kept people at a distance. If I ran into him at a business reception, he'd act like I was invisible, brushing past me without a change in expression. If we met at a bar, he'd shoot me a cold glance, sometimes even looking with disgust at the male models I'd hire. He was just so damn annoying. Bars were always a mixed bag, and when he stood there looking like that, someone would inevitably be brave enough to try their luck. Hey there, all alone? Lonely tonight? How about I keep you company? I'll even pay you. Whenever that happened, his bodyguards would shoo the person away. He'd just sit there like an emotionless ice sculpture, drinking by himself, shutting out the rest of the world. My best friend, Chloe, once asked me, "Do you think Charles Cole is asexual? It seems like he hates both men and women. He's gorgeous, but who would dare make a move on him?" She paused, then looked at me with wide, shining eyes, as if she discovered a new continent. "Jenna, you're one of a kind. Maybe you're his kryptonite." I rolled my eyes and shot her down immediately. "Sorry, I only go for simps, not cactuses. Even if every other man on Earth dropped dead, I wouldn't give him a second look." To prove my point, whenever I went on blind dates or hired guys for a night out, I made it a rule, anyone with the last name Cole was an automatic no. But even though I couldn't stand him, the New York business world was only so big. Charles and I were always running into each other. We never spoke, though. It was a strange, unspoken agreement. Then, disaster struck Cole Industries. Charles got into a car accident. His illegitimate half-brother, Kevin, took over the company and pushed Charles out of the core management team. When his father heard the doctor announce that Charles was paralyzed from the waist down and would never walk again, he gave up on him completely. He cast him aside like a useless chess piece, leaving him to fend for himself. The golden boy had fallen from grace, and everyone was laughing at him. Meanwhile, my family was pressuring me to get married. So, I had a brilliant idea. I set my sights on Charles Cole. Marrying him would solve his problems and get my family off my back. It wouldn't stop me from having my fun on the side, and I might even be able to use his brilliant mind to grow my family's company. It was a win-win-win. I put my plan into action and told Charles the first wanted to marry him. He sat in his wheelchair, his chiseled profile completely devoid of color. Maybe he was so heartbroken that he'd just given up on everything. He actually agreed to my proposal. After we got married, it was like a switch flipped in my head. This man, who was now my husband and had once infuriated me, suddenly became the focus of my attention. I'd provoke him constantly, like he was a little cat I'd adopted. When I was happy, I'd pull him into my arms and we'd sleep together. When I wasn't, I'd pinch his handsome cheeks and mush his face around. Seeing him look so mortified and humiliated made me feel better. All the frustration and resentment I'd once felt toward him slowly faded away. But Charles was thin-skinned and couldn't take a joke. Every time I got close, he'd clutch the blankets like a maiden whose virtue was about to be stolen, terrified I was going to pounce. "Jenna, I'm already a cripple. Do you really get a kick out of torturing me like this?" I thought back on all this as I made 2 light salads in the kitchen. Torture? I grumbled to myself. That's not torture, that's affection. Remembering how I'd almost lost control when I saw him earlier, I smacked my own forehead in frustration. That's when I noticed the clothes and bedsheets drying on the balcony. Charles was a neat freak and changed his clothes constantly. But lately, he'd started changing the sheets just as often, once a day, even. Such a spoiled brat. I couldn't keep indulging him like this. A light dinner is good for you. Just as I was setting the plates, Charles came out of the bedroom. He'd fixed his hair, but the top 2 buttons of his pajamas were undone, revealing the bite mark I'd left on his collarbone. It looked like a beautiful flower blooming on a canvas of white paper. He sat in his wheelchair, his long legs hanging lifelessly, but his face held a stubborn expression. Vulnerability and strength, a contradiction that somehow looked harmonious on him. I leaned on the table, watching him for a moment before saying quietly, "Time to eat." "I'm not hungry. I have some work to do for the company tonight." He stared at me without blinking, as if trying to see if I understood his hidden meaning. "I know," I said, annoyed. "I've got plans tonight, too. I'm going out, so I won't bother you." His expression softened. He wheeled himself over to pour a glass of water. His well-defined fingers wrapped around the glass, the veins on the back of his hand prominent. He really had beautiful hands. The way his Adam's apple bobbed when he drank, it could make a person thirsty. I couldn't help but slap myself across the face. "Stop being such a creep," I mentally scolded. Just then, the front door opened. My best friend, Chloe, strode in like she owned the place. Jenna, can you hurry up? They've got some ridiculously hot new guys at dusk. We have to go now or we'll miss out. My spirits instantly lifted. But then Chloe's eyes widened as she saw me. Why is your nose bleeding? I rushed to the sink to wash it off, mumbling, just been a little stressed lately. Chloe nodded knowingly, her gaze sweeping over to Charles. Yeah, that makes sense, she muttered. Totally understandable. After I got the bleeding under control, Chloe spotted the red handprint on my face and exploded. Did Charles hit you? She shrieked. She rolled up her sleeves, ready to go pull his hair out. I quickly grabbed her arm. It wasn't him, I swear it wasn't. Chloe looked at me with a mix of pity and frustration. You're such a pushover. Why are you still defending him at a time like this? That slap mark is so red. If it wasn't him, did you hit yourself? That's it, I'm serving some justice today. Let the light of righteousness shine on your floor tiles. I was speechless. She'd definitely been reading too many novels. The girl was stronger than an ox. I couldn't hold her back, and she charged right at Charles. Just as her hand was about to grab his hair, I squeezed my eyes shut, terrified of the carnage that was about to unfold. But then I heard Charles's cool, detached voice. What's the matter? Aren't you going to do it? I opened my eyes. Chloe was frozen, her gaze fixed on the marks on Charles's neck and collarbone. She turned back to me and shot me a glare that was full of understanding. I knew instantly what she was thinking. I'd been all over Charles, left those marks on him, and he'd slapped me for it. I was about to explain when Charles's voice cut in again. I thought you were a champion of justice, Miss Chen. Weren't you going to let righteousness shine on my floor tiles? Chloe's face turned bright red. She was both embarrassed and guilty. I jumped in to smooth things over. Chloe was just quoting a song. Haven't you heard it? The light of righteousness, shining on the great earth. As I spoke, I reached over and fastened the top 2 buttons of Charles's pajamas. My fingertips accidentally brushed against the skin of his neck, and the tips of his ears turned a little red. My explanation just made everything more awkward. Chloe finally couldn't take it anymore, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward the door. You know what? I'll just take you to dusk to spread your righteousness there, she said loudly. Without another word, she dragged me out of the house. As the door clicked shut, I heard Charles's angry voice yell, "Don't go." On the way to dusk, Chloe rubbed her arms as if trying to shake off a chill. You know, she complained, I'm starting to think Charles has the potential to be really sharp-tongued. If he licked his lips while he was talking, he'd probably poison himself. I chuckled. Well, what did you expect? I told you not to rush in without listening to me. I couldn't help it. Chloe whined. I'm just a simple, empty-headed girl. My hands always move faster than my brain. And you? She said, turning to me. Are you part dog or something? Look at what you did to poor Charles. Anyone who didn't know better would think he was being abused. Also, what's with the slap mark on your face? Did you get fresh with the pretty boy and get put in your place? I rubbed my nose, looking sheepish. I was sleepwalking and accidentally slapped myself. But you can't hide anything from Chloe. The moment she heard my explanation, a wicked grin spread across her face. You can do that? That's a special talent not everyone has. Next time one of my friends gets on my nerves, you have to sleepwalk over and slap them for me. My ears turned even redder. She patted my shoulder. Also, Charles is a patient right now. Take it easy on him. Don't wear the poor guy out. I slapped her hand away. We have a very pure relationship, okay? You should worry about yourself. Your dad said if he caught you at dusk one more time, he'd ship you off to work in South Africa. Her eyes went wide. When we got to dusk, the place was pulsing with loud music and dancing. People were shouting, laughing, and moving together in a massive crowd. In that atmosphere, I felt like a fish back in water, completely in my element. After a while, my phone lit up with a call from our butler, Leo. Leo? What's up? Leo's voice was frantic. Miss Jenna, Mr. Cole isn't feeling well. He nearly fainted. I'm about to take him to the hospital. You should get over there, quick. Just then, I heard Charles's weak voice in the background. No hospital, I haven't finished my work, I need to keep going. I was furious and worried. What are you talking about, work? You need to. Jenna, I'm fine, Charles's voice cut in, even fainter this time. You go on and have fun, don't worry about me. Right after he spoke, there was a flurry of commotion on the other end. Leo's voice changed, now filled with panic. "Mr. Cole? Are you all right, Mr. Cole?" Beep, 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 the line went dead. Leo sent me a text with a hospital address, saying he was taking Charles there first. I immediately replied that I was on my way. My mood for partying was completely gone. I told Chloe what was happening and rushed to the hospital. On the way, I cursed myself. I shouldn't have left Charles alone. What if something serious happened? It was strange, really. He had been recovering so well. Aside from not being able to move his legs, he was perfectly normal. His last physical showed he was healthier than me in every way. How could he have suddenly collapsed? I was going to have to ask the doctor about this. When I got to the hospital, I sprinted to Charles's room. It was quiet inside. He was lying motionless on the bed, his face so pale it almost blended in with the white sheets. Charles's physician, Dr. Evans, was standing by his bed. When he saw me, he began explaining Charles's condition, choosing his words carefully. "Mr. Cole has been in very low spirits since the accident. As his wife, Ms. Johnston, have you been trying to communicate with him more?" I thought for a moment and nodded earnestly. "Yes, a lot. Holding his hand, hugging him, kissing him, that was all intimate. Communication." Dr. Evans hesitated. "But his condition is even worse than before." I was shocked. Just then, I saw Charles's hand twitch on the bed, and his brow furrowed. "Dr. Evans, I think he's waking up," I said excitedly. Dr. Evans tucked Charles's hand back under the covers and patted it firmly. "Impossible. Mr. Cole is exhausted. There's no way he could wake up now." His tone was so certain that I glanced back at the man in the bed. His breathing was steady again. Okay, I must have imagined it. The doctor knew best. Dr. Evans sighed and lectured me, "You need to trust your doctor." "Right," I said. Listening to Dr. Evans, I started to feel a pang of guilt as I remembered Charles's red-rimmed eyes, the veins popping on his neck, his clenched fists, and his constant rejection. He was right. Charles's poor health was my fault. He was getting sick from the stress of me constantly teasing him. Seeing my silence, Dr. Evans continued, "Mr. Cole is also under a lot of pressure from work. If this continues, I'm afraid he'll start losing his hair and go bald." With that, he pulled a picture out of his pocket. It showed a young man, not much older than us, who was already bald on top with just a ring of hair on the sides. He was one step away from being completely bald. I was horrified. Dr. Evans pushed his glasses up his nose, a glint in his eye. "As his wife, you really need to be more concerned about your husband's health. A lot of these young CEOs trade their looks and health for success." His words left me stunned and terrified. And deeply ashamed. Charles was working for himself now, but my family's company was reaping huge benefits from it. He was toiling away at night while I was out partying. I felt like a ruthless boss who had no consideration for her employees. And he was so handsome now. If he went bald, I'd probably want to kill myself. Handsome men were a rare species. I needed to cherish and protect him. The next day, after confirming Charles was fine, I checked him out of the hospital and we went home. That evening, after my shower, I climbed into bed and lay down beside him. His body was warm, and the heat radiated through our clothes, making me feel a little restless. "Charles, you're not mad at me, are you?" My voice broke the silence in the bedroom. Charles's hand moved. "I fainted because I was overworked." "It has nothing to do with you." His tone was gentle and forgiving, which only made me feel guiltier. Who was he overworking himself for? Wasn't it for my family's company? For me? But he didn't blame me at all. Instead, he asked, "So, did you have fun yesterday?" I thought back to the laughter and noise at dusk and zoned out for a second. Seeing my silence, Charles assumed I hadn't enjoyed myself and felt a wave of guilt. He lowered his gaze, his voice full of regret. "It's all my fault for bothering you. Who were you with at dusk yesterday?" I can apologize to him. Don't. I couldn't stand seeing him so defeated and self-deprecating. I cut him off. I threw my arms around his waist and buried my face in his neck. "You don't have to be like this," I mumbled. "I was just dancing on my own yesterday. I wasn't with anyone." I used to bully him all the time, yet he was still so gentle with me. The more I thought about it, the more ashamed I felt. The picture Dr. Evans had shown me flashed in my mind. I debated whether to tell Charles not to work so hard. I hesitated, then tested the waters. Things at the company aren't that busy right now. Why don't you take a break? Charles was quiet as he considered my suggestion. I thought I might be getting through to him. I felt a flicker of hope. But after a moment, he made up his mind. No, he said. I don't think I'm working hard enough. I could be working harder. I was stunned. I used to work 8 hours a day. From now on, for you and your family's company, I can work 12. It was like being struck by lightning. I was completely fried. I grabbed his hand. That's enough, really. You're already working so hard. He pressed his lips together. It's not enough. I heard the prices for drinks and bottle service at dusk went up again, and the luxury brands have all released new collections. And there are those condos in Miami, the jewelry auctions in London. Faster sports cars, more comfortable private jets. If I don't work harder, you won't be happy. I was speechless. He was working himself to death so I could go out and live a life of debauchery. My long-dead conscience suddenly jolted back to life. I looked at Charles's handsome, refined face, then thought about the flashy pretty boys at dusk. I weighed them on the scales of my mind and instantly decided that trading Charles for those guys wasn't worth it. Trading Charles for all those expensive things wasn't worth it either. As long as he was healthy and alive, the wealth he could create would be far more than what he was giving me now. Thinking like a businesswoman, I did a quick calculation. Killing the goose that lays the golden egg was a bad move. Playing the long game was the only way to go. My dad always said I was ungovernable, I said carefully. How about you try to manage me from now on? I'll try my best not to go out so much and just stay home with you. How does that sound? If I stayed with him, I could supervise him and make sure he didn't overwork himself. He stiffened at my words, then quickly relaxed. Can I really manage you? He asked softly. I looked up at him and nodded. I prayed he would agree. If he agreed to manage me, I could use that as an excuse to manage him. Manage him so he wouldn't get too tired, so he wouldn't be unhappy. That way, his health would improve. And he'd stay handsome. Charles saw how sincere I was, but he looked down sadly. But I don't have the right or the authority to manage you. You're my husband. How could you not have the right? I thought about it and realized he must feel incredibly insecure. He was probably afraid I'd go back on my word. If he tried to rein me in, I'd just push back and make him look foolish. So I added, I'll draw up a contract tomorrow. We can both sign it. Then you'll have the official right to manage me, and I can manage you. How about that? He looked down at me, hesitating. Really? I nodded. Charles turned his back to me. A moment later, his shoulders began to shake slightly. Seriously? All I did was ask him to manage me, and he was so moved he started crying. The next day, I had the contract ready. Charles looked at me deeply. You can still back out, he said quietly. I'm not backing out. Just sign it, I urged. He slowly signed his name, then seemed to remember something. The company is expanding its business in the north suburbs. The office there needs someone on site, so I'll be busy for a while. I'll be staying at the house up there. His words reminded me of just how much he'd been doing for the company lately. The North Suburban division had never been very profitable, but after Charles took over, its performance shot up to second place in the entire group in no time. And now he wanted to expand it even further. I was grateful to him, and I was worried that no one else could take proper care of him. I'll go with you, I said. I was also interested in that business sector. Going with him would be a good way to gain more experience. But then I saw him take a sip of water, his Adam's apple bobbing, and the next words that came out of my mouth were, besides, I'm used to sleeping with you now. He choked on his water, his dark eyes filling with tears. Charles shot me a sharp glare, his chest heaving as he tried to compose himself. Finally, he said, do whatever you want. Which meant yes. After we moved to the new place, I started attending business events with him. At one of them, we ran into his brother, Kevin. Even though they were brothers, their looks and demeanor were worlds apart. Kevin was wearing a custom-tailored suit, but he looked like a kid playing dress-up in his dad's clothes, completely out of place. That, combined with the undisguised arrogance on his face, made him incredibly annoying. Charles, on the other hand, was low-key and gentle, navigating the world of money and fame with ease. He had a faint smile on his face and was well-versed in current events, finance, and new business trends. His conversations were substantive, and he easily won people over. As I watched him, a little voice in my head whispered, "This man is mine." A wave of indescribable satisfaction washed over me. Later, after Charles had had a fair bit to drink, I wheeled him out to the balcony for some fresh air. Kevin quickly followed us. Well, what's a cripple like you doing at a high-class event like this? Mooching off your wife, huh? You've really made something of yourself. If you're so good at pleasing women, why don't you go work at a club? I happen to know a few rich old ladies I could introduce you to. Charles listened to his venomous words as if he were watching a clown perform. He wasn't angry. Or bothered in the slightest. But I couldn't take it anymore. I swung my fist and punched Kevin right in the nose. Blood immediately started pouring out. He wiped at it, smearing it all over his face. What the hell is wrong with you? Are you crazy? Kevin glared at me, balling his fists, ready to fight. I looked at him contemptuously, planning to hit him even harder next time, hard enough that his own mother wouldn't recognize him. But Charles grabbed my hand. He looked at his half-brother and said coldly, "Kevin, don't make a scene. I hear coal industry's stock has been tanking lately. If you cause a scandal here, the shareholders won't let you off easy. It's a long way down from the top. Are you sure you want to find out what that feels like?" Kevin's face contorted in anger. "What do you care about coal industries? You're a cast-off. You're living worse than a dog. How dare you threaten me? I'm warning you, stay away from the company, or I'll make you regret it." With that, he stormed off. That piece of crap, I fumed. He talks so tough. Someone's going to put him in his place one of these days. Charles watched Kevin walk away, a small smirk on his lips. He let out a low mm. After the party, I couldn't get Kevin's obnoxious face out of my head. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, so I hired some guys to beat him up. I didn't expect to have unexpected visitors the next day. Kevin was in a wheelchair, his face a mess of black and blue. His arm was in a sling, and his leg was in a cast. He looked like a total wreck. His father, Arthur Cole, was pushing him. He looked at me with such hatred, it was like he wanted to tear me limb from limb. I couldn't help but laugh. Charles glanced at the two men standing before him, his expression blank. "What are you doing here?" he asked calmly. His indifference seemed to set Arthur off. "What are we doing here?" he roared. "We're here for justice. Your brother was beaten to a pulp by this viper, and you, his older brother, don't you think you owe him an explanation?" A sarcastic smile touched Charles's lips. "My mother only had one son." "What brother are you talking about?" "You bastard. Kevin is my son. If he's not your brother, what is he? Can't you tell the difference between your wife and your brother?" Arthur yelled. I stared at the old bastard, wanting nothing more than to slap him twice. But Charles just laughed, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're right. Jenna is my wife, the woman I love. Of course, she's closer to me." He paused, then looked at Kevin. "As for some nameless bastard," he said coolly, "why should I care if he lives or dies?" Watching this family drama unfold, I wanted to give Charles a round of applause. He had such a refined, stoic face, but his words were pure venom. Arthur's face turned shades of red and purple, and Kevin looked just as furious. After a moment, Kevin hissed, "Do you think just because the Johnston family took you in, you can live happily ever after? Dream on, Charles. One day, you'll come crying back to me and Dad, and I'll make you understand that some people are not to be messed with." Charles looked thoughtfully at the family that had disowned him. "We'll see about that," he said quietly. After we got rid of those two plagues, I knelt in front of Charles and grabbed his hands. "Are you okay?" I asked, worried. He shook his head. A hint of a smile touched his lips, and he leaned in closer. "Why did you have someone beat up Kevin?" he whispered. "Were you defending my honor?" His smile left me momentarily dazed. When I came to my senses, I stammered, "Why yes, that's right. He was being such a jerk. I got angry seeing him bully you." "Thank you. You're so good to me," he said, pressing his lips together as if he was a little flustered by my kindness. Lately, sharing a bed with him had stirred up some strange feelings in me. I wanted to be closer to him, even closer. My lips met his. They were soft and a little sweet. My eyes flew open, and I shot up from my kneeling position. I was mortified by my own unconscious actions. Jenna, how could you kiss Charles without his permission? We'd cuddled before, but we'd never kissed." "Kissing is a big deal," I cursed myself internally, frantically smoothing my already neat hair and clearing my throat. I grabbed my phone, held it to my ear, and, ignoring the blank screen, said loudly, "Hello, Chloe." "Oh, what? Your sister had her baby?" "Of course, I have time. I'll head to the hospital to see her right now." With that, I grabbed my car keys and bolted out the door. Behind me, I heard a soft, amused chuckle. I walked even faster. It wasn't until I was out driving around that I remembered Chloe was an only child. What sister? Charles was smart. He must have seen right through my pathetic lie. I drove into traffic with a burning face, groaning inwardly. You are such an idiot. When I got home that night, for the first time, I didn't sleep with Charles. But he was terrible at taking care of himself and managed to burn his leg. Luckily, it wasn't serious. Afraid something else might happen, I had no choice but to share a room with him again. After I treated his burn, I lay down beside him. Remembering how I'd kissed him without his consent that afternoon, my ears started to burn again. The room was completely dark. I heard a rustling sound as Charles turned over. I quickly shut my eyes and pretended to be asleep. But I could feel a deep, intense gaze on me, not even trying to hide itself. Just as I was about to steel myself and open my eyes, the scent of fur grew closer. Warm lips pressed against mine, and a hand with long, elegant fingers covered my eyes. In the darkness of the night, Charles kissed me deeply. He had always let me do whatever I wanted, seeming so gentle and easy to bully. I'd almost forgotten what a dominant person he was before the accident. This kiss was forceful, leaving no room for resistance. My attempts to push him away were crushed by his strength, and soon I was as limp as a marshmallow. What shocked me even more was the surprising heat coming from his lower body. Something was slowly rising. I couldn't believe it. I reached down to touch him, and his breathing grew heavier. It's better?" I asked, astonished. His voice was incredibly hoarse. "I don't know. Maybe we could try it and see." I almost choked on my own spit. Try it? With who? With me? I looked up at him. His eyes were swirling with a burning desire, ready to consume both him and anyone near him. Trying it with him wasn't out of the question, but I was afraid he'd get his hopes up only to be disappointed. He watched my expression closely, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. "Can we?" Seeing how much he was struggling, I felt a surge of charity. After all, this man had made me a lot of money. If he wanted to confirm whether his little brother was in working order, I supposed I could help him out. Based on what I knew, these situations usually didn't last long. But I had seriously underestimated him. He went at it all night. It wasn't until the sun came up that he finally relented. My throat was raw. My eyes were red and swollen from crying. My body felt like it had been run over by a truck several times. I didn't even have the strength to lift my arm. My consciousness was fading. As I drifted into sleep, I thought with a tearless sob, I guess this is what they call hoisting yourself by your own petard. When I woke up again, my phone was flooded with missed calls and messages. Charles was gone. A news alert on my screen blared a headline about the Johnston Corporation collapsing. I stared at the bold letters, horrified. I quickly texted my dad, but his phone was off. The unease in my chest grew. Just then, the company's VP called, his voice urgent. "Ms. Johnston, your father was gambling in Hong Kong and racked up a massive debt. He mortgaged everything he could. The company is going bankrupt." My vision went black. A message from Chloe came in. "Jenna, I heard your dad pissed off some very dangerous people and skipped town. They're coming for you now. You need to get out of New York and lay low for a while. Come back when it's safe." One piece of bad news after another. I was numb. Dad, oh, Dad. Most kids disappoint their parents, but you screwed over your own daughter. I scrambled out of bed and started packing. Live to fight another day. As long as I was alive, I'd have a chance to make a comeback. I saw the wedding photo of me and Charles on the nightstand and felt a pang of regret. Life on the run would be unstable. He was weak and couldn't handle that kind of stress. I couldn't drag him down with me. I sent a message to Chloe. "Charles can't be homeless with me. Find someone to take care of him for a while. Don't let his dad or brother bother him. I'll come back for him once I figure things out." Chloe sent a voice message back, "Don't worry. Mission accepted." I quickly packed a suitcase and took a taxi to the airport. New York was where I was born and raised. Leaving like this, in disgrace, felt awful. I hadn't cried in a long time, but I wiped a tear from the corner of my eye. Suddenly, several pairs of shiny black dress shoes appeared in front of me. I flinched and looked up. A few men in black suits stood before me. "Miss Johnston," one said respectfully, "our boss wants to see you." I buried my face in my scarf and said in a rough voice, "Sorry, you've got the wrong person." They weren't interested in arguing. They exchanged a look. "Our apologies," one said. Then they grabbed me by the arms and escorted me out of the airport. Maybe it was the shock of everything happening so fast, or maybe I was just exhausted, but I fainted. When I woke up, I was in an unfamiliar room. It was dark, with only a single floor lamp casting a soft glow in the corner. I crept out of bed, trying to leave, but a hand suddenly clamped around my wrist and pinned me against the floor-to-ceiling window. "Let go of me. This is kidnapping," I shrieked. The tall man pulled off his tie and used it to bind my wrists above my head. "Jenna," he snarled, biting out every word, "what the hell is this? You sleep with me and then try to run?" The voice was familiar. The warmth was familiar. The lights in the room flicked on. Charles stood before me, his face terrifyingly dark. I stared at his long, straight legs, horrified. "How are you standing?" His grip tightened, and a sharp pain shot through my wrist. "I was running to save my life, not to abandon you." I explained everything that had happened. Only then did he loosen his hold. "This is all trivial," he said quietly. "You should have talked to me first." Trivial? This guy's arrogance knew no bounds. "If I end up dead, you'll be a widower." "How is that trivial?" I yelled. His face darkened, and a vein pulsed in his forehead. "Don't you dare say that word. I would never let anything happen to you." I collapsed onto a nearby sofa in frustration. "And how are you going to save me? With those two long legs of yours? Those guys are ruthless. They'd break all your legs even if you were a crab. Besides, the Johnston Corporation is bankrupt now. There's no more sugar mama for you to live off of. We were just birds of a feather. When trouble hits, we fly our separate ways." Charles's expression grew uglier and uglier until he finally snapped. "Enough. There may not be a sugar mama anymore, but you can go back to coal industries as its mistress." He looked me straight in the eye, trying to suppress his anger. "I've already taken back coal industries. I can clean up the mess your father left for you." "Really?" It was an incredible turn of events. My eyes lit up, and I grabbed his hand. He turned his face away, a little awkwardly. "Really?" he mumbled. "But I have one condition. You have to promise me." "Okay, I promise. I'll promise you 100 things." The sweet talk just flowed out of me. A sly, fox-like smile spread across his face. "All right then. Since you're so sincere, you can agree to 100 of my conditions." I was speechless. I'd heard bits and pieces about Charles's family history before. His father had started coal industries using his mother's dowry and support. The company's expansion and IPO were also thanks to her abilities. But somewhere along the line, the couple grew apart. Thinking back now, it was probably because Arthur had an affair. Charles's mother fell ill and passed away a few years later. Fortunately, before she got married, she had owned a small, under-the-radar tech company. That company got lucky and hit the jackpot, eventually growing into the giant it is today. Charles was the sole beneficiary. As he slowly recounted his past, I felt a wave of emotion. "Your mother really loved you." Loving parents always plan for their children's future. Thanks to his mother's foresight, Charles wasn't left completely helpless. But, if he had all these resources, why did he agree to marry me after the accident? He looked at me quietly, as if he expected the question. "You really don't remember at all?" I just stared back at him, completely lost. He sighed and ruffled my hair. "It was a long time ago," he said gently. "When I was a little girl, my dad used to take me to all sorts of banquets. I had a big appetite, so as soon as the food was served, I'd dig in. One time, I was so hungry I practically inhaled my food. When I finally looked up, I saw a little boy across the table staring at me with a wounded expression. I met his gaze, and he immediately turned away, hopped off his chair, and ran out of the room. I was a little full after eating, so I went outside to walk it off. I found him fighting with some other kids. He was pinned to the ground, his small, fair face covered in dirt and scrapes. He looked so pitiful. Back then, I had a strong sense of justice and couldn't stand seeing weaker people get bullied. I charged in and chased all the mean kids away. "Thanks," he said, wiping his tears as he stood up. I patted his shoulder and said in my most grown-up voice, "Don't mention it. You should learn how to fight so you can protect yourself. Besides, real men don't cry. Next time something like this happens, don't you cry. Make the people who want to bully you cry instead." To this day, I can still remember the way his eyes sparkled as he looked at me, filled with adoration. It was as if I were a hero who had descended from the heavens, destined to become a legend in his life. It's a shame I forgot to ask his name. After finishing his story, Charles looked at me expectantly. My eyes widened in disbelief. "That little boy, that wasn't you, was it?" I asked tentatively. He nodded. I clutched my chest and staggered back a step. So we'd known each other for years. But he always ignored me whenever he saw me. I thought he hated my guts. He glanced at me, looking a little uncomfortable. "That's because every time I saw you, you were with a different guy." There was a hint of resentment in his voice, and I instantly understood. He was always so grumpy because I was always laughing and talking with different men. He'd been jealous. So the seeds of fate had been planted long ago, and now they were finally blooming. I wrapped my arms around his neck and gave his lower body a meaningful look. "So when the doctor said you were paralyzed, that was a lie, too?" He gave a low mm. No wonder he was such a beast that night. I thought it was some kind of medical miracle. Turns out it was just another lie. Noticing my mind was wandering, Charles pinched my chin. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, annoyed. I knew exactly what his trigger was, but I couldn't resist dancing on it. I smiled. I was just thinking about that new batch of handsome guys at dusk. His eyes darkened, a storm brewing within them. His lips crashed down on mine, fierce and wild. "I'll make you forget," he growled. And he was a man of his word. By the end, I was lying on the bed, completely spent, having forgotten everything I was supposed to forget. Later, Charles helped the Johnston Corporation get through its crisis and kicked Arthur and Kevin out of his company. I saw those two obnoxious men one last time. They were once so glamorous, but now they were like stray dogs. "You ungrateful brat," Arthur yelled. "You won't even spare your own father. You'll be struck by lightning one day." "I've only ever heard of cheating husbands going to hell," Charles said calmly. Arthur stumbled back, nearly falling over before Kevin caught him. Kevin was a mess. But he still spoke with an air of arrogance. "Don't get too cocky. My father and I will make a comeback." I couldn't hold back anymore. "Are you two serious?" I asked. The only reason they'd ever been successful was because one lived off his wife and the other lived off his parents. Neither of them had any real talent. What made them think they could make a comeback? "Excuse me," I asked politely, "but where are you getting this confidence?" Kevin sneered. "Does it matter where I get it from? What matters is that I have the guts to dream big and fight for it." Hearing his son's grand speech, Arthur nodded in approval. Charles witnessed the whole thing and clapped 3 times. He pulled a business card from his pocket. "You've got such big ideas. It would be wrong of me not to support you." He placed the card in Kevin's hand. "You've always been good at groveling. How about this, why don't you go work at a club? I happen to know a few rich old ladies I could introduce you to." He threw Kevin's own words right back at him. I burst out laughing. A flash of hatred crossed Kevin's eyes. He grabbed a fruit knife from the table and lunged. In the nick of time, Charles pulled me out of the way. The sound of a gunshot echoed through the room. "Don't move. Police." It turned out Charles had already reported Arthur and Kevin's crimes to the authorities. The two were suspected not only of financial crimes but also of attempted murder. The death of Charles's mother years ago had always been suspicious. He had investigated and discovered the truth, that the murderers had been right beside him all along. The evidence was irrefutable. Arthur and Kevin were quickly taken into custody to await their final sentencing. Their names vanished from the New York business world, leaving behind nothing but a cautionary tale. One day, Charles cooked a lavish dinner, and we were eating peacefully at home. "My car accident," he said, "that was Arthur and Kevin's handiwork, too." He calmly revealed the truth of the past. I was horrified. "What?" he repeated himself. I stared at him, my face twisting in disbelief. This man was unbelievably calculating. He knew Kevin had arranged the accident, but he played along, letting the plot unfold. He'd even manipulated it, turning their plan to his own advantage. He fooled his biased father, deceived his foolish brother, and captured my arrogant self. I had always thought he was a helpless victim after the accident. I never imagined I would end up falling into his trap, too. Charles Cole was truly one of a kind. When it came to being cunning, no one could beat him. "Jenna, are you mad at me?" he asked carefully, seeing my expression darken. I rolled my eyes. "Mad about what?" "That you made me so much money." The lies were fake, but the money he earned and the help he gave were real. He used his resources to save my family's company, gave me shelter, and encouraged me while I was rebuilding my business. None of that was fake. If he really didn't care about me, he wouldn't have gone to such lengths. Not long after dinner, I heard the shower running. Soon, Charles emerged, fresh and clean, and came to my bedside. But instead of getting into bed like usual, he slowly took off his robe, revealing a toned chest, abs, and sharp V-lines. I instinctively covered my nose, afraid I was about to have another nosebleed. What are you doing?" I glared at him, worried he was about to do something shameless. "Nothing. I just thought, you might like this." He lifted me into his arms and leaned in to whisper in my ear, "Master, are you satisfied with what you see?" My face flushed crimson. The world had truly gone mad. Even a proper man like Charles had turned into such a shameless seducer. Wasn't this just forcing me to fall from grace? But I think I kind of liked it. In the end, I succumbed to the temptation of his beauty, becoming prey for the beast. A fiery night began. Outside, fireworks exploded in the sky. It was destined to be another sleepless night.